Hi, and welcome to Emotional Abuse Treatment, the Love Without Hurt interviews. I've given many interviews about the Love Without Hurt boot camp since its inception nearly 30 years ago. Here are the best questions from those interviews that appeared in the press and media. Question: why do you claim that traditional treatments risk increasing abuse? You mentioned psychotherapy, trauma work, and abuser groups. Many abusers like psychotherapy that explores childhood pain, and they like it because it reinforces their self-obsession. Self-obsession is a major predictor of emotional abuse. Before they learn basic self-regulation skills, psychotherapy risks providing excuses and making them feel more entitled. Now, these are quotes I've heard from victims of emotional abuse after their partners have been in therapy or trauma work. With all I've had to put up with in my life, don't you dare hassle me. It's so hard being me, I shouldn't have to put up with your crap. I know I was mean to you, but with the pain I've suffered, cut me some slack. Abuser intervention groups try to instill accountability by confronting abusers with negative judgments about their behavior. Now, the negative judgments are certainly justified, but they don't produce change. I don't believe people change by confronting them with our superior values. That just makes them defensive. They change by appeal to their own most humane values. Abusers need to see the self-destructive nature of abuse and that hurting the people they love leads to self-loathing. They need to experience the well-being of compassionate, kind, supportive, and loving behavior. When they do, they fully renounce their abusive behavior on their own without confrontation. Our last homework assignment of the boot camp is, we call it a statement of compassion, in which they elucidate all of the hurtful behaviors they've done, apologize for them, but most importantly, say how it will be different in the future. What will they do under similar circumstances that is more compassionate and kind? Partners of abusers don't fare much better in psychotherapy because it inadvertently develops victim identity. This makes them hypersensitive to feeling blamed. And that can make them confuse blame with empowerment. So they get stuck in this kind of purgatory where they're not accepting the blame for the abuse anymore, but they're also not really recovering. They're not to blame for their hurt, certainly, but it's their responsibility to heal. And accepting responsibility for their recovery is empowering. Blame is about how you got into the hole. Empowerment is how to get out of it. Empowerment is making your experience better in the real world. And blame is misery because the real world isn't what it should be. Question: why do you emphasize resentment in your treatment of emotional abuse? When resentment is chronic, it's the dominant emotional experience for both partners. It dominates their experience and their memory and their future expectations. In other words, they expect their partners to disappoint them. By then, it's habituated, automatic, bypassing insight, and hard to change. It leads to angry outbursts. Partners are always on edge. So they're never starting from baseline. They're always around 20% aroused. So it doesn't take that much to get them to overreact. Resentful dynamics lead inexorably to walking on eggshells and emotional abuse. We target resentment, but emphasize its very opposite, and that's core value and compassion. Clients like themselves better when compassionate to loved ones, and like themselves less when resentful, even when the resentment is justified. Everything they resent, they can also look at more compassionately. And everything you're compassionate about in a love relationship, you can also resent. It really depends on the way you choose to look at it. Compassion makes room for connecting, negotiating, and cooperating. Resentment causes disconnection, demands, and power struggles. Question: can you be too compassionate? Won't you become a doormat? We teach compassionate assertiveness. That's standing up for your rights, preferences, and vulnerabilities in ways that respect your partner's equal rights, privileges, and vulnerabilities. Another way to put it, it's self-compassion balanced with compassion for loved ones. It's never compassionate to excuse mistreatment or abuse because they violate your partner's values and erode his or her self-value. Excusing abuse is like giving drugs to an addict. Compassion is tough love. Question: what are the main strategies of the boot camp? There are 6 main strategies: building biological immunity, developing an accept and improve mentality, building new coping habits, building the psychological immune system, building self-regulation skill, and building relationship skills. The biological strategy is increasing endorphins and oxytocin while decreasing adrenaline and cortisol. Endorphins and oxytocin calm anxiety and make us feel connected to loved ones, which fosters cooperation. When couples are connected emotionally, they're more cooperative automatically. Adrenaline and cortisol temporarily increase energy and confidence, but they make us more competitive and see our loved ones as opponents, not partners. And they have an amphetamine effect, so you get the surge of energy and confidence, and then you crash and feel worse than when you started, which makes you want to get more adrenaline and see your partner as an opponent even more. The boot camp encourages oxytocin hugs. That means you hug 6 times per day and hold each for 6 seconds. Building coping habits, that's what the brain does automatically and unconsciously when experiencing discomfort, hurt, or distress. You're not aware that you're doing them, they happen automatically. The problematic ones are blame, denial, and avoidance, which cause disconnections, erode relationships, and diminish self-value. They begin in toddlerhood, so they're pretty entrenched by the time couples come to the boot camp. We practice replacing blame, denial, and avoidance with improving, appreciating, connecting, or protecting. These enhance relationships and raise self-value. Think about it. You always feel better about yourself when you're able to improve something, a situation, or an experience, when you appreciate loved ones, when you feel connected to them, and when you're protecting them. Accept and improve mentality. Resentful people spend enormous energy railing against the way things are and who is to blame. We can't improve what we don't accept. In life generally, and especially in love, we must accept the way things are and focus on improving them. So railing against the way they are, or because they're not the way they should be, wastes emotional energy that should go to healing, correcting, and improving. Building the psychological immune system. Core value is the ability to create value and meaning in experience, memory, and in life in general. The more value and meaning we create, the less likely we are to feel devalued by other people's behavior. If we don't feel personally devalued, we're not moved to devalue. So that breaks that cycle of I'll devalue you because I think you devalued me, and vice versa. Core value is a place within where we can go to reset and convert blame, denial, and avoidance to improve, appreciate, connect, or protect. Self-regulation skill is the ability to hold on to core value and value for your partner under stress. That's when you don't like your partner's behavior or your partner doesn't like your behavior. So neither of you feels personally devalued or motivated to devalue. We teach a technique to convert blame to improve, appreciate, connect, and protect. The technique must be practiced by recalling instances of stress 12 times per day for 6 weeks to become automatic. So you will automatically try to improve or connect or protect or appreciate without having to think about it. And that frees the more powerful parts of your brain to solve problems instead of making them worse. The relationship strategy is actually the last stage of the boot camp. And that's because relationships can't improve until partners develop self-regulation skill. Without it, they want the interaction to regulate them, which cannot happen when both are dysregulated. You're just going to make it worse. We train partners to focus on what they want, not on what they don't want. Whatever we focus on amplifies and magnifies and becomes more important than what we don't focus on. That's just a neurological principle. Mental focus amplifies and magnifies. Whatever we focus on in relationships, we're likely to get more of. Asking for what you want is more likely to get cooperation. Focus on what you don't want sounds like blame and shaming and all but guarantees negative response. We urge clients to focus on feeling lovable, not feeling loved. Being loved can make us feel guilty for getting something we don't deserve, and inadequate when we can't return it equally. So it's not a good sense. If you don't feel worthy of love, being loved isn't good. We can make ourselves feel lovable by practicing compassion, kindness, support, and affection. And by doing that, you will greatly increase the odds of feeling loved. So don't focus on getting your partner to make you feel loved. Focus on making yourself feel lovable by practicing compassion, kindness, support, and affection. Binocular vision is the primary relationship skill of the boot camp. That's the ability to see your partner's perspective alongside your own. So even if your perspective is right, it's incomplete if you can't see your partner's. And we urge them to refrain from judgments until they can see their partner's perspective. In fact, they're encouraged not to give their own perspective without giving their partners, and that trains them to develop binocular vision, which is simply a skill. It's not something your brain does automatically. You've got to train it to do it. Question, doesn't the boot camp come in a couple of different packages? There's a self-help version that has 50 pre-recorded webinars and exercises with an option of consultations with me to go over the webinars and exercises. And there's a private boot camp for one couple or an individual, and it includes the pre-recorded webinars and exercises, plus 4 2-hour Zoom sessions and 2 1-hour Zoom follow-ups with me. Now, the goal of the boot camp isn't merely to stop abuse. It's to help participants become the persons, parents, and partners they most want to be.